Hi, Erin.
How you doing, Jill? How's everyone today? I'm in a new location this week.
I like your cloud.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm in a hotel room. Last week it was Orlando. This week it is Washington, D.C. or National Harbor, which I've never been to this area. It's pretty nice.
How's the weather?
The weather's amazing, way better than it was in Orlando. And it's a really beautiful location. I've never been here. It's just amazing. Hmm.
I'm speaking to test that the transcript is working.
Tanvi, I just forwarded you a few emails. There's a few people who can't make it this week, but they were letting me know that they'd make up the work.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, sorry, I just got to email.
No worries. I was just wondering if you need me to reply to them or would you be doing that?
I could probably reply to them later this evening, so don't worry about it.
Sounds good.
And Caitlin, I put those on you too, since you were keeping track.
I think I'll get started in a minute or so.
Okay.
I'm also sharing the slide link to the Zoom chat in case anyone wants for reference. And I think I'm planning to get started. Erin, I'm still not able to share screen.
There you go. I don't know why you're an alternative host. I'm pretty sure. I'll check on that after.
I don't know what's happening. I logged in into Zoom and still this is happening. Anyways, let's get started. So for today, we were planning to go through a few housekeeping things and then go through the Taurus demo that we were not able to complete last time. I think Erin will also be going through some more nuances on developing assessments within Taurus today. And then I'll be talking through refining some of the learning objectives that you all have been working on and also the assessments. And then we'll be going through a practical CTA, where first I'll walk you through the steps of a practical CTA. We'll also be doing a demonstration of a practical CTA and then having you all go into separate breakout rooms to perform the CTA in the context of your project. And then we'll be doing reflections on the CTA. And Caitlin will also be talking later on qualitative data collection and learner sourcing within your projects. Any questions so far? Moving on to housekeeping. Some of the things that I think these were related to the questions that we got within your surveys or as emails or within your reflections. Some of you all asked about submitting CTAs on this week's assignment, and although it's not a requirement, it is something that you all can do by attaching the CTAs towards the end of your assignment or in the context of your assessment. So feel free to do that, and we'll be evaluating them. But again, that is something that is not mandatory for grading. Also remember to submit assessments to get feedback on them for this week. Some of you have already submitted the assessments, but some of you are still working on them. So let us know if you all are having any issues while working on them, or if you all have any questions while working on them. And then for this week's assessment and all the assessments all the project work moving forward, we'll be creating a copy of your project in a Google Doc, and we'll be providing inline feedback. And that means we'll be providing specific feedback as in the form of comments in the Google Doc, as well as some overall summative feedback as well, so that we are able to we are able to point out to specific areas that might need improvement or specific areas that have feedback instead of just giving an overall feedback. Any other housekeeping stuff that I might be missing out?
Not that I can think of, unless there's questions about anything so far.
Great. Now I'm going to switch over and hand the screen over to Erin for the Taurus demo.
Hi, everyone, welcome today. I know we rushed through some of the demonstrations before, so I wanted to make sure we took the time to show you exactly what you need to do. So I am going to give you a quick demo, and then I have to drop off to go run a booth at a conference that I'm at right now. But let's get started. So when you're signed in to your authoring account, let me do that. And let's see, I'm just gonna go to a test course because once something with nothing in it. So probably the first thing you want to do is start to enter your learning objectives. And so to do that, you have to go over to create and go to objectives. And here's where you can create learning objectives that you can then attach later to your course. Now, I know, or to your assessments, when you're developing your assessments, I believe at that point in time, you can also generate new objectives, but I feel like it's a best practice to have all your objectives entered so you can just select from them. And that way you won't, accidentally create another objective that's the same as an old one, or we've had issues with that. If you don't have everything already loaded and you do things as you go, it's just nice to have things already there. So to create your learning objectives, if you haven't done so already, you just hit this button, create new learning objective, and then you can add the language that you want. Language for new objective. And hit create. And once you have that, let me find the one. Here's the new objective. Now, here will be your list of objectives. I've put different objectives in here showcasing this functionality. But if you click on any one of these, it'll open up. And once you have, if you have any sub-objectives within the learning objective that you have, you can select create new sub-objective. And these will be, you might find through your CTAs that you need to modify your objectives, but you also might want to document specific skills that you want to make sure that you're providing enough practice on or collecting data on. So if you have sub-objectives, then you can create a new one. Here is a new sub-objectives, and we call these, sub-objectives in Taurus. They can be skills, they can be knowledge components. Different folks use different names to talk about sub-objectives, but in Taurus, they're called sub-objectives. And when you create that, it'll show you the sub-objectives that you have underneath the learning objectives. And once you have these objectives tagged to assessment items, you'll start to see, or to the top of pages, they'll be listed here where these objectives are being used. If you need to change or reword or move things around, one of the things you can do is you can just reword. This is for the sub-objective. So if you decide you want to change the wording of it, you can do that by just clicking reword, changing it, and saving it. You may also, another thing that sometimes folks do is sometimes there's sub-objectives that might span multiple objectives. And when I build a course, I call building learning objectives and skills out as a skills map, something that shows the learning objectives and all the skills underneath it. In more advanced skill maps, there could be what I call a skill web, where sub-objectives are sometimes treated or needing to collect data against different learning objectives as well. So an example of that would be if you are in a biology course and you need to identify different cells, animal versus plant, but then you have a unit where you're really having them identify, different plant cells. You might want to use that same sub-objective in different areas of your course. So I think that's all to this interface. It'll also show you if you have activities tagged, how many you have here. So there's some information here about your learning objectives. But once you have your learning objectives and you start to build out your assessment items, you want to go into curriculum, and wherever you have pages with assessment items, you want to tag those with the objectives. And I'll show you how to develop different assessment items. But the first thing I'm going to tell you is that Taurus has the two different types of pages, essentially. There's formative practice, which are called practice pages. And those where most of your content will go, as well as any formative practice. When you want to have a quiz or a summative assessment, then you put those in what's called a graded assessment page. When you're in a practice page, and most of these are practice pages, but I'll just go ahead and create a new one. I'll just keep it called new page. You can edit. And what I'm going to show you now are how to add different assessment item types to your page. So this would be for a formative assessment page. And it works similarly, by the way, in the graded assessment page. You select the type of assessment items you want, and you just will be creating a whole page of those in a summative assessment. So you want to find this line, and sometimes that can be tricky, but you find that line, and then you have these options. And I think I showed before a multiple choice question, but let's start there with a multiple choice question. Once you select MCQ, it gives you a little template here. And I think I've said this before, but just to reiterate it, you definitely want to change this title. And the reason being is it'll call all of, it automatically titles the assessment items. And when you're looking at the data, if you have a whole bunch of multiple choice questions, and you never change this title, they'll just be listed as multiple choice, multiple choice, multiple choice. So I always say it's probably a really good idea to come up with some sort of naming structure for your assessment items and make sure you use this title to change it. So I'm gonna just call this, I'm gonna keep it multiple choice. And I'm just gonna call it multiple choice 1. And a good naming convention probably should have some kind of indicator of maybe the skill or the learning objective that it attaches to. That's usually good practice, because then when you're looking at the data, you can kind of know something about where that is in the course before you even dig in. In this case, I'm just going to change it to multiple choice 1. And then here is where you select the learning objective that you're going to tag it to. I would suggest that if you tag it to a skill or a sub-objective, you only have to select the sub-objective. I would also suggest that you put learning objectives at the top of your pages. And for those, I would select the learning objective at the layer of the level of the learning objective. Most of those are created in a student-centered way before the students really know what skills they're going to be practicing. And so having the larger level objective at the top of the page, I think, is a better indicator than listing all of the skills. It can get kind of overpowering to a student if they see a whole bunch of skills listed at the top. So I try and keep it the page level objectives just at the learning objective level. And then if you move sub-objectives, attach those to the assessment aims, because you're really trying to indicate what you're measuring. You can have multiple learning objectives for any given assessment. So say I have a pretty like a scenario-based or a high cognitive level type assessment item. Those might actually be providing practice to students in multiple skills, in which case I would really want to attach all the ones that are being practiced. So in this case, say I'm creating a multiple choice item and it's 2 sub-objectives. I just go ahead and selected both of those to attach to this activity or assessment item. I kind of use those interchangeably. And then you have some tabs here. The first one is the question. So this is a MCQ question. And then you have choices, and you can add multiple choices if you want. And as you know, you should have as many choices as there are plausible misconceptions, mistakes, explanations. You don't need to have more options than are realistic and authentic.
In chat, Jill Haskell asks, how do you add additional choices? When I click the link, does not work to add more.
Really? So when you add choice, it didn't do what it does here? Add, really? That is a bug or something then.
Jill is nodding.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you, Sasha. I wonder, thanks, Tanvi. Tanvi will do some troubleshooting while I continue on. Yeah, I'm in Chrome too. I have to admit, I've never seen that happen. So I'm going to continue talking, so maybe we can troubleshoot that separately. So answer options, as many as you need. I'm going to just keep it at 3. And there are my answer options. I'm going to select, the answer key. Then you go to the answer key. And here's where you select the correct answer. And you can write feedback for the correct answer. And I would suggest, depending on the tone of the course and the types of students you have, I try to be very specific in terms of how I write my answer options and feedback. So I try to keep it just saying correct or incorrect, because that's the first thing the student wants to know. Did I get it right or not? Sometimes if you're writing feedback for maybe a K-12 audience, you might want to be more encouraging, almost right, or good job. But I would say whatever you select, again, same with the naming conventions, try and be consistent through the course, because you're setting up an expectation for the student to be able to go through it as quickly as possible, right? And so if they get used to a certain cadence, then I think that makes it easier for the students. So I usually try and just do correct or incorrect, and then the why. And targeted feedback, this one is feedback for the correct answer. And so you want to reinforce the correct answer, or why the correct answer is correct. And that is so that students can reinforce what they're learning, or in the case that they might have guessed, you want to make sure that they, understood why they got that correct. And then we have lots of options for feedback. And so we have a feedback for all correct answers. So for all correct answers, it wouldn't be targeted, of course. And if you have targeted feedback, it will go through the targeted feedback. It won't even use this general feedback. I guess in the past, we've steered folks away from being able to do this, but we know as we're building this interface, there's certain situations where you do just want to give incorrect feedback for all answer options, but I would highly encourage you to do targeted feedback. And the way you add targeted feedback is by selecting that targeted feedback. And then for each answer option, you can explain why it's incorrect. And I'm actually surprised. I guess you can give more targeted correct feedback as well. I'm actually a little confused by this interface, so forgive me. I wasn't expecting this, but I'm just going to select choice B because I already said choice A is the correct option, maybe. Forgive me, guys. This interface isn't acting as I expect. Deployment targeted feedback. So Jill, I guess we're both jinxed today a little bit. I'm having some issues here trying to do this.
Mine actually fixed itself.
Okay.
I went back and then I went back into it, and now I'm doing it.
Yeah, I just am going to refresh the page and see what happens. Okay, go to answer key. Targeted feedback. Okay, so here, I guess if you want targeted feedback for the correct answer, you can select that it's correct here. And that might have been where I got this bug, actually. But I'm going to go to choice B and have, incorrect, targeted feedback for choice B. And then I'm going to add another for choice C. Incorrect. Targeted feedback for choice C. Okay, then let's see how this works. I'm going to preview this, just to preview this page. Hopefully. Okay, so here's this MCQ. And it shuffles them automatically, by the way. Just that's another thing you should know. If you want, I'll show you how to turn shuffle off. But yeah, so targeted feedback for choice C. Targeted feedback for choice B. I did something, oh, because I had selected that as the correct answer in the targeted feedback. Okay, apologies for fumbling through this a little bit, but I think you saw there's lots of options, and definitely preview and make sure you did the thing you want to do. So I wanted to show multiple choice first, because that's the simplest. But here I'm going to add some other options. So for other question types, there's check all that apply. That's what that CATA stands for. And again, learning objective, answer key. And again, I'm always going to do targeted feedback. Now, the thing about check all that apply, my team is used to me giving a whole spiel on check all that apply. But you want to reserve those for use them very minimally. They sometimes really confuse students. So in this case, you can actually select feedback targeted for multiple select answers. And so you can imagine if you start getting into it, and this is what I tell folks, if you use check all that apply, you should probably write feedback for every combination. That's why I try and tell people not to do it. Because you can imagine there's different processes going on for students if they selected choice A and B versus ABC versus B and C. There's different misconceptions that they would be having selecting those different options. So there's other ways to get at multiple correct. Select all that apply will also, I think, mess up your data a little bit. You won't be able to really distinguish what the misconception is very easily. So I would say use multiple choice over check all that apply. But if you need to, and there are times when you do, you can do that. Hints are selected here on tab that says hints, and you can have multiple hints. You don't have to have multiple hints, but if you do, you can just add hints here and have as many, and they'll show up to the student in order. Every time the student selects a hint, the next one will come up. Bottom out hint is we use for mainly open-ended questions. If there's no way for students to actually get to the correct answer, sometimes it's nice to give them a bottom out hint in case they're really struggling with answering them. And I would definitely do that for check all that apply. And explanation is if a student selects the wrong answer more than twice, so that the third time they would get this explanation. So it's another way of being able to have hints and feedback that don't give away the answer unless absolutely necessary. Let me also show you some other assessment types. So there is multi-input, and multi-input is if you have a question where you want to have multiple blanks. So if I have a paragraph here and I want them to choose a word that fills in this blank, and you can do it. And if you select this option, you can have the option of drop down, text, number, or math. And depending on which one you select, you'll have different template options. So drop down is they'll actually have a pull down, and the options will show in a pull down. Text is words. I would keep them at words and not necessarily phrases. Use phrases for short answer or something like that. Numbers if it's a numeric, and then for each of these you'll have different options with each of these essentially. And math will give you like a formula. Another option is ordering. So when the students see an ordering question, they can move things around like this. I also need to show you guys this little 3-prong thing over here on the right. That's for shuffling. If you want to turn shuffle off, that's what you want to hit to turn shuffle off. And again, all of the templates work very similarly depending on the type. And then we have input. And again, input can be short text, it can be a number, paragraph, or a formula. So just wanted to show you that in each of these options, there's more options to look for. Any questions about that? And if you were building a summative assessment or a graded page rather, this is how you probably would. You would just add your options on these. And then we also have the ability to do a question bank. Activity bank, excuse me, is over here under create activity bank. And what this gives you is a place where you can create multiple questions like I have here. And you can not only, you can actually create tags for each of these questions. So if I want to say, tag my questions according to difficulty level. So difficulty 1, say, but you can have any tag of your choosing. So you can even subcategorize questions this way. So I'm going to add this tag here. I'm going to add that same tag here. By the way, once you have questions in the activity bank, you have to collect this. You have to select this edit to edit them. It kind of locks them. And we have these locks in place so that multiple people could be building courses at the same time. And you want to make sure you don't undo someone else's work. So I'm going to tag this one with difficulty 1 as well. And the way you use an activity bank is if you do it you can use these in a formative page or a summative page. They're usually used more to create pools of questions for summative assessments. That's a good way to use them. But no matter where you are, whether you're in a graded page or a formative practice page, oops. The way you add an activity bank question. And what this does is when the student encounters it, it'll run that pool selection in the background and deliver a question from that pool right at the time the student gets to the page. So say I want to have an activity bank question here. I found my little line and I'm going to add bank. And here is where you say, okay, I want one question that actually has the tag difficulty 1. And so I tagged 2 questions with that. So when the student encounters this page, it'll pick from one of those and randomly and put it here. And I don't know if this works on preview, but let me check it out. So I have all these. And well, that didn't work out very well because I didn't name it. But essentially, it'll, I have a bunch of unfinished questions essentially on this page. That's why it looks so funky. But essentially, this would probably be the activity bank question that it's selecting, that last one on the page. So I think I've taken up enough time doing that. I think I've already went over time. Apologies, Tanvi and Caitlin. I know we have a full schedule today. But wanted to make sure you guys knew all those different parts of the questions and assessments and different ways to do it. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us or ask us throughout the rest of this session.
Thanks, Erin. This is super helpful. So as Erin mentioned in her demo, we do split up our learning objectives into component skills, and I'll talk a little bit about that during this next section, and also talk about how we work on refining the assessments.